Today, not in defense of TikTok, but in defense of TikTok's users, especially the 170 million American users. Congress is rapidly heading towards passing legislation that will likely result in the blocking of the most popular application among young people in this country. An app whose fundamental purpose is to facilitate and promote speech. An app that has revolutionized how people connect, share, do business, and communicate online. An app that is bringing competition to the heavily concentrated social media market. It should be a serious flag that a bill with such significant implications for freedom of speech and online competition has gone from being an idea in the House of Representatives to all of a sudden being passed on the floor of the Senate in a matter of weeks, just weeks. So when political elites who otherwise fiercely disagree with each other come together to pass legislation that may result in significant censorship, yes, censorship, often in the name of national security, we should be hypervigilant about the true intentions of this legislation. Episodes in history of using national security as a pretext to crack down on dissenting or unpopular speech loom as warnings about the ease of compromising our values when national security is supposedly at stake. I want to be clear. I rise today on this greatest of debate floors not to defend TikTok. I don't deny that TikTok poses some national security risks. Instead, I come here today with a plea to my colleagues to think carefully about the impact of this bill, the consequences of its implementation, and the trade-off between supposed national security threats and freedom of expression and basic rights to free speech. This legislation may address or at least mitigate a national security risk, but it could and likely will result in widespread censorship. And this censorship would predominantly impact young people in our country, many of whom are just gaining their political consciousness and obtaining the right to vote. And while many of my colleagues are sincere in their fears for U.S. national security, others appear to support this legislation for a far more dangerous reason. They want to ban TikTok because of its users' content, because of TikTok's viewpoint. They don't like that many TikTok users support progressive or liberal politics or perspectives that they simply don't agree with. The bill's supporters dress up this censorship by arguing that the Chinese government is manipulating TikTok's algorithm to promote certain viewpoints. In this view, a TikTok ban is about combating Chinese propaganda, not penalizing TikTok's content. TikTok is, from their perspective, poisoning the minds of young Americans with pro-communist China propaganda. This isn't just some hypothetical risk, critics say, but an actual ongoing operation by the Chinese Communist Party. Don't be fooled by these arguments. Although the Chinese government certainly censors online speech in China, there's no credible evidence that the CCP has done so in the United States through TikTok. In fact, when U.S. national security officials talk about the risk of China manipulating TikTok's algorithm, they refer to it as a hypothetical risk. A hypothetical risk. This is the real objection, an objection to the political content, the most valuable and protected speech in a democracy. We should be very clear about the impact and intent of this legislation. This bill is, for all intents and purposes, a ban on TikTok, and it is intended to suppress disfavored speech on the platform, plain and simple. We can see that in the cross-examination, the questioning in the House of Representatives hearing on this subject. But my colleagues who are awake to this reality, they may nevertheless believe that such speech suppression is a small cost to pay to keep Americans safe. To them, I urge a strong note of caution. The defense that a little speech suppression is necessary when our national security is at stake is ultimately un-American. This reasoning may seem convincing, but American history has too many examples of controversial laws that ultimately infringe on civil liberties in the name of national security. In the United States, we often look back on these episodes with regret. We should not add TikTok to that history. Mr. President, I rise today not in defense of